We always hear about how the Greeks viewed the world, what they thought about it, what they figured out and calculated. And similarly, we hear a lot about what the Arab geographers and all figured out, what they talked about. But what did our forefathers talk about? And by our forefathers, I mean the ancient Indians, to name a category, right? And when I say ancient, I'm talking so ancient that we kind of transcend the world of actual factual geography and go into mythology. But don't worry, we will actually go into some actual geographical calculations and those studies as well done by ancient Indians. Hi, my name is Misha and welcome to Tarihi Tales. Now, we get all this information about how the ancient Indians viewed the world through a compilation of texts which are known as the Puranas. The Puranas, the word Purana actually literally means old. Now, these books, all of them vary drastically in terms of when they were written, when they were compiled, and all of them almost are very sacred to the religion of Hinduism. And these books, they don't just talk about the geography or how they viewed the world, they talked about a range of different topics, and all of them are very fascinating, but we're going to look at how they viewed the universe during those time periods, what they thought about the entire world. These Puranas were kind of compiled in the modern form that we know of them today, ranging from the 5th to the 9th century CE. Some of the material was written way before this time period, some was written a bit afterwards, but the things that we're concerned about, the worldview, that is estimated to be written around the 1st century CE. And according to them, this is what the world looked like. The Earth is said to be a flat horizontal disk in a vertical egg-shaped cosmos, in which there are 5 heavens above and 7 underworlds below. The universe's axial mountain, Meru, stands at the center of the Earth's disk. When we look at this flat disk that the Earth is from above, we see that the Earth is made up of 7 concentric circular continents and intervened with 7 concentric circular oceans. The central continent, which has the mountain Meru in the center of it, is called Jambudvipa. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing something. I'm trying. And that continent is surrounded by a salt ocean. They say that each successive continent, which is ring-shaped, is wider than the one that is within it. And as we move outwards, the continents become bigger and bigger. And the oceans in their worldview, they're not just made up of salt water, they're made up of varying materials. And they say in order that the oceans are made up of sugarcane juice, then there's an ocean of wine, there's one made out of ghee, which is clarified butter. There's another one made out of curds of milk. At the very end, we have the ocean made out of fresh water. And that's not where the universe ends though. At its border, we find that there is a large deserted kind of a track which is golden in color and stretches out to the very edges of the mountains, and it goes on to the edge of the cosmos. Each of the continents has a large tree after which it is kind of named. For the central continent that has the Mount Meru, that continent has a tree called Jambag, and which is basically a rose apple tree, and it grows on the sides of some of the mountains which surround Mount Meru. And it's after that that the entire continent is named. The central continent, Jambudvipa, is also divided into 9 subcontinents with the help of mountain ranges. There are 3 parallel ranges on both its northern and its southern side, and then in the center, there's an entire range which kind of separates the area around Mount Meru from the east or the west. Now, historians say that when they talk about the southernmost range, they're most likely talking about the Himalayas, and they talk about how the Himalayas further divide the subcontinent which they call Bharatavarsa or Bharata, and this area Bharata kind of refers to what we now know as the Indian subcontinent. And they say that these mountain ranges, the Himalayas, kind of separate it from the rest of Jambudvipa. Now, these Puranas actually talk a lot more about this Bharatavarsa than any other area, and what they're talking about, the geography that they're kind of describing, even though this is mostly mythological, a lot of that kind of does correspond to actual geography on Earth, which is mountains to the north and then seas to the south of it. And when they talk about Bharata, they tell us that there are 9 further divisions of this area which run from east to west, which kind of run transverse. And then they have an exhausting list of mountains that we can find in this region. They also have names of a lot of rivers that run through this region. And the distances that they're talking about are vast. The unit of measurement that they use is called yojana, and historians estimate that this unit is roughly around 8 to 15 kilometers in length. And according to the Puranas, Jambudvipa, the central continent, is said to be more than 100,000 yojanas, which is a lot. And when they talk about Bharata, they say that this is around 9,000 yojanas. And when they talk about the entirety of the earth, how big is the entire earth, they say that that's about 500,000 yojanas or 50 crore yojanas. And like I talked about earlier, the Puranas actually talk about a lot of other things, like the people in all of these different continents, and they also have different lifespans, different cycles of things that they go through. On some continents, life is easier. On some continents, it's much more difficult. And there's a whole logic to that. But unfortunately, all of that is kind of out of the scope of this video, so I'm not going to go into much detail about that. And now coming back to the geography, now even though it sounds like a lot of the things that they're talking about are very, very mythological and not actually real, but at the same time, we do find that they talk about people and races that do definitely exist. And when they talk about them, they also talk about the localities where they exist. Some of the people that they mention are very, very familiar, like the Sakas, which are the Scythians. We have the Radas, which are the Dards, the Hunas, which are the Huns, the Sinas, which are the Mongols, the Parasekas, which are the Persians. And when they talk about the localities of these people, sometimes they're placed to the south of Bharata, sometimes they're placed to the north of Bharata, and then we also find a lot of mentions of actual mountain ranges and mountain peaks which do exist even in this day and age. But the interesting thing is that sometimes we find the name of a mountain which does really exist, and then it's right next to another mountain which doesn't exist at all. But a lot of historians generally agree that the point of the Puranas was never to basically give us a very accurate historical description of the world. It was more kind of interpreted in terms of religious contexts. But there are other works that were being done in the Indian subcontinent which do kind of give us a much more realistic geographical picture of the world. A lot of these worldviews were kind of written by different people, like the Jains or the Buddhists in India, and then later on we also find a lot of Muslims who were initially Persians or Arabs which moved into this area, and they wrote a lot of things about world geography. But historians have largely found that when people are looking into what the ancient Indians thought, mostly they disregard the works that were written by Muslims or by Jains or Buddhists, and they talk more about the works written in Sanskrit. And for this video, I'm just going to follow the same pattern, even though I know that those works should be included within this, but we'll maybe make a different video about those. There is evidence that even in the first millennium, Brahmin astronomers actually calculated the correct size of the earth and used that calculation in their works. They also did work to find out the exact longitudes and latitudes, and to do that, they used the mountain Meru as the north pole, and Lubbock was kind of used as a theoretical intersection point of the equator with the prime meridian. And this ran through the city of Ujjain. They were also able to set down mathematical formulas that showed the difference from the city of Ujjain to the equator and from the Ujjain city to the Himalayas as well. And they further expanded this entire system. They made entire tables which showed the positions of different towns and cities in the Indian subcontinent according to their longitudes and latitudes. So there we go. That's like a little snapshot of what the ancient Indians, and in this case, we mostly talked about the texts that were written in Sanskrit, what they looked at when they saw the world around them and how they viewed it. So let me know down in the comments below what you thought about this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.